Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
She tolerates, the Star Wars thing, which is big for her because her thing is Star Trek. So I've got this spot on the wall here in my study that it would look really good on. So.
Oh, if you buy that, you might be hanging on the wall next to him. So
exactly.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Live from the Coffee with Kenobi studios, we are on the air with Craig Dickinson and Mike Audette. Tom will join us for news, and I'll share an interview I did with Bill Motz and Bob Roth, executive producers of LEGO Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. We're also going to talk about a very interesting concept, courtesy of Mr. Dickinson, which would be gatekeeping versus contextualization for new fans. I'm really looking forward to diving into that in our coffee chat segment. So, before we jump into anything, joining me today as guest co-hosts are CWK Star Wars Rebels reviewer, Rebels Reconnaissance is the title of the blog, of course, and the Star Wars educator, Craig Dickinson, and CWK blogger, Far, Far Away radio member, and the Lasso podcast co-host, Mike Audette. Welcome, gentlemen.
Awesome to be here, guys.
Thanks, yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. This is, again, we throw some names into a hat. Not really. I knew that you two would be an amazing team, a dynamic duo, as it were. And we're going to talk a lot more about superheroes when we talk later with Mike, of course. Because Mike is a prolific Wonder Woman fan. He's got an awesome Wonder Woman podcast coming up, which we will talk about much later. But I want to start the show with something interesting that happened. And guys, how did you celebrate the 40th anniversary of Star Wars? Did you do anything special on May 25th?
I didn't do too much, but that's mainly because I'm right in the middle of my Star Wars unit right now. And so at school that I'm teaching, so I kind of hold off on a little bit. Like, I don't want to kind of spoil my enthusiasm for that. So I think I may have watched a couple of trailers at school and wore a Star Wars shirt. I think that's as far as I went this year.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. What about you, Mike? And by the way, Star Wars, we'll get back to that. It'll be fun for people to know more about that. Mike, tell me what you did.
I didn't really do too much. I think it was last Thursday. So I just did the usual, go into work, but my job allows me to listen to podcasts all day. It's not I rarely ever have to pick up the phone or anything, so I'm able to just pop in my headphones, get my work done throughout the day. So I did my usual listening to Star Wars podcasts for a couple hours at work. And then, pretty much just came home and enjoyed the company of the Star Wars community online and celebrated the day.
The interwebs.
Yes, exactly.
I did something really interesting that I'd thought about doing for a very long time. And as listeners of the show know, I've been going through a lot of stuff and really making this basement kind of the Star Wars basement of my dreams. And it's really worked out more than I could ever expect, thanks to my wife being so supportive and putting up with my Star Wars-ness, as we all understand, But I found my Betamax in my attic. And now I've had this thing in the attic for years, and the attic is insulated, but it's not finished. So we've got insulation in the walls. That's it. There's no drywall, no nothing, no climate control. So when it's hot outside, it's hot in the attic. When it's cold outside, you get the point. So I found this thing and I thought, this machine is over 40 years old. I wonder how it's going to do. And I find my Star Wars Empire and Jedi beta tapes. Now, beta, boys and girls, is something that came out way before a VHS tape, which is also a precursor to the DVD player. Which it is crazy. No, I'm guessing, Mike, that when you were, if I'm correct, you're about 10 years younger than me, maybe even younger than that.
Mm-hmm.
That sound about right. So, had you ever heard of the beta before?
Yeah, I've definitely heard of it. I didn't.
Well, you're a learned man, though. That's
Yeah, that's true.
They're small tapes. VHS tapes were a bit longer, but beta tapes are much smaller. I think the plug on them was they were supposed to be a higher quality. Craig, you've heard of beta tapes, yes?
I have. I've never actually seen one. Yeah, but when I was younger, there wasn't any around. On the West, I was always told that it was more of an East Coast type of thing, maybe Midwest, East Coast. So or maybe it just didn't get to us where I lived when I grew up. But I remember VHS pretty early on and hearing about Betamax and knowing it was out there, but
so
never
during the gold rush,
firsthand.
You didn't make it out your way, is what you're telling me.
That's basically what I'm saying.
Well, if you want to see what they look like, I did a quick little video on the Coffee with Kenobi Instagram, #shameless plug, that you can check out. It shows the tape and how and I put it in the machine. And I watched it, and I haven't watched this thing on beta honestly, it's got to be 25 plus years since I've seen it on beta. Because why would I have it on VHS? I've got it on DVD, I've got it on Blu-ray, just like all of us. And it was wonderful. I mean, the picture was still color, but it was very, very thin. It wasn't grainy. Yeah. I adjusted the tracking, which was a wheel, and it actually worked perfectly. And it's, of course, it's in 4:3, not in 16:9, because it's so old. And it's all the original effects, all the original sound, everything. It's completely unblemished from 1997 on, from early 80s on, because this tape, I believe, was released in 1980 or 81. And it was just, I've seen Star Wars a number of times, as have we all. Anyone who's in the Coffee with Kenobi family has heard Star Wars a million times, but there was something so amazing about watching this thing on a Betamax, because when I was a kid, Empire Strikes Back hadn't even come out yet, and so I watched Star Wars practically every day. I mean, that was what my brother and I did. We'd watch it, we'd play outside, we'd eat, maybe we'd watch it again that night. So this thing has been played hundreds of times. Maybe not hundreds of times, but over 100 times. I think that's probably fair to say. There's just something so beautiful about seeing it like that. I didn't miss... it's kind of funny, like when Obi-Wan Kenobi says, Mos Eisley Spaceport, you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. It just shows like this picture of practically nothing, like this landscape. It's almost like you're looking at land mass as you're flying over the states. And then they just, all of a sudden they're there. There's nothing really, there's no Rontos, there's nothing.
Yeah, that intro's not part of it.
Oh, it's so wild. Yeah, and then you've got the cantina, which is just so just very basic and beautiful. But I didn't see little matte lines. I didn't see any of that stuff, and I was looking for it. I just felt like this could come out now. No, I'm watching it through the filter of a very biased, nostalgia-ridden guy. But there was just something so beautiful about it. And I've seen it in theaters fairly recently, Blu-ray, whatever, and it's great. It's Star Wars, but there was just something about this that just, I don't know, just kind of took me back. Do you guys have sort of a way that you first saw and experienced Star Wars that just kind of affects you differently than other ways?
The VHS is probably definitely the way I saw it the most. And I was thinking about, you mentioned the thing about the color, and like it's in color, but it's thin, the kind of way you described it. And the last time that I watched it on VHS was a couple years ago when I was actually doing my Star Wars unit, and my DVD player stopped working, and I happened to have a VHS player in my classroom and had my copies there too. And so it was really interesting to put that in, just to kind of go midstream into the middle of Empire Strikes Back. Here it is in 4:3. Here it is. Kids were like, "Is this in black and white?" Just it's so different from that. But to see, and to see on Hoth, to see the original Wampa Cave scene, and all of that, just to go, hey, let's talk about the special edition. So it kind of brought up some interesting things in that way. But it's weird. It's like I love them both. I love both versions. Yes. I don't really have a preference one way or the other. It's convenience that I'll put the Blu-ray in, versus the VHS or whatever. If it was at fingertips either way, who knows which way I'd go, on any given day. Yeah.
Well, you know how it is with students. You sometimes to grab them in. Whenever I show Star Wars, and I know you've done this much more than I have, when I show it to them, students who haven't seen it, if I don't show them the updated version, they already think it's outdated anyway for whatever reason. I guess the hair or whatever, and so I mean I'm totally being biased, but it's just I don't know. Do you find that as well?
The first movie, because it's funny. I mean, with it was at the time thought of as being a very, very fast-paced movie, but by today's standards, it's so slow. Until you get to the end, you get to the Death Star scene, like the last 30 or so minutes, that's when they really start to get pulled into the action moves really fast, the quick cuts and everything. But generally, it takes a movie and a half. You get halfway through Empire before you finally get them, where they find the story is engrossing enough. They know the characters enough. They're invested by that time, but to begin with, it's just like, this is dragging, and it's the desert and it's boring. It's like, good, you're feeling the way Luke felt. That's the whole idea. But yeah, exactly. But it does take a little while to get. They don't fully appreciate what it is, and also because so many things have been inspired by that, and then kind of taken it to the next level. Where I've had kids make comments, well, this kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, yeah, but Star Wars was first. You wouldn't have that if it wasn't for, all those things that you're thinking this is an echo of that. Well, no, Star Wars did it way before that. So you can at least appreciate it on that level, or try to. But again, bias, so it's kind of a
we definitely understand. Mike, what about you? Did you ever have Star Wars shown to you in school by a teacher?
I don't think I did. See, I remember, well, technically I don't really remember, but I know that I would get a copy of the VHSs from Blockbuster in our town, and we would watch them between when I was probably by like 5 years old was the first time I saw it. And I actually remember seeing in 97 when they came back to the theater for the 20th anniversary?
Yes,
that is correct.
Yeah.
Special edition 20th anniversary, absolutely.
Yep. I remember, vividly remember sitting in the theater and seeing it in 97 when it came out. And then after that, it was just there. I never, I still remember going to get the VHSs again at Blockbuster, and then after The Phantom Menace came out, I think it was between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones is when they came out on DVD. Mm-hmm. Probably in those years between there.
That's correct.
And between that and then getting into high school when I got my first job and I bought them myself with my own money, and then I still have that DVD set. It was I think the special edition came out in a 3-pack with the original trilogy back in 06 or something like that. And I still have that set that sometimes I still watch even if I have the Blu-rays.
What's the first Star Wars movie you saw in theaters, Mike?
It was A New Hope.
New Hope. Oh, nice.
Yep.
Was it the special edition?
Yep, when it came out in 97, yeah.
I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who that's the first way they experienced it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So your first foray into it is the special edition cut. So have you seen the original version of that?
I have seen the original. Yep.
Was it weird? This is fascinating. Was it like, whoa, this is so weird, I prefer the special edition, or how'd that hit you?
I honestly think I was just young enough where I could tell that they were different, but it was just Star Wars, so I didn't really care.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because it was the Blockbuster probably had the VHSs before the special edition came out, so I remember seeing the old A New Hope and everything on the original VHS, and then when they came out, they re-released the VHSs after the special editions debuted in the theaters. And then, I just don't really, I guess I was just too young to really intellectually think about the differences. It was just Star Wars.
But the way you ingested it is just, obviously, I mean, I mean, we've hung out at multiple celebrations, and we've been friends for, well, as long as, I mean, we've all been friends for about the same amount of time since the show started, really. And you love it. There's just something about it. So you've seen it for the first time. You still saw Star Wars for the first time on a big screen. That's amazing. That's a whole other thing that we're gonna have you on again just to talk about that alone. I think Craig and I would just want to put you on like this pedestal and study you as educators to see how it sort of hits you, because I think that's so cool. Craig, what's your first time or your first movie you saw in theaters, Star Wars wise?
Empire.
Empire
1980. So I would have been 4.
Wow.
So I had no idea what I was seeing going in. And I have just vague recollections of that. Just Hoth and the AT-ATs that's one thing that is very, very much ingrained. And I remember trying to decide what had happened in the cave on Dagobah with me and my brother and some friends, as not quite elementary age kids trying to figure out what happened in that cave, and adults are still trying to figure that out. But yeah, just Darth Vader coming back. Like, we thought he was dead and then coming back, and that was the biggest thing that we couldn't figure out. So yeah, I saw that first, and then I saw A New Hope. Must have been on a re-release maybe the following year.
Yep.
In the theater.
That's right.
And I was still pretty young and didn't quite know like where that fit chronologically, and I just remember having the feeling of why don't these people know each other? I think I thought it was after Empire, right. Saw that, and then I was in first grade when Jedi came out, and by that time I'd seen him multiple times on TV and was all ready to go, and so that's the one that just hit me. That was the first one that I kind of really knew what I was in for.
Sure, you're just at a perfect age for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I was. Let's see, I was born. Let's see, I think I was about 5 or 6 when Star Wars came out. So I saw Empire when I was 7 or 8, and then Jedi when I was 10 or 11. So Empire is always one that's resonated with me, and I've often wondered if that is because of the age I was when I saw it. I mean, is Jedi your favorite one?
Jedi is my favorite, yeah.
There you go. Mike, what's your favorite one?
Probably A New Hope.
Just has to have the Force in the movie.
Yeah, probably A New Hope. It was funny when Craig was talking earlier about showing it to his students and how they can't really get into it until sort of the end, where the rebels are starting to attack the Death Star, and I'm like the opposite. Usually whenever I rewatch it, I'm completely gripped up, and like, not that I don't like that part, but it's just the entire beginning up until when the Luke and Han, they get on the Death Star and get Leia, and then everything that leads up until there is my favorite part. I don't know if it's just I love the aspect of it in Tatooine, or just everything that happens between Luke and Ben and everything. It just that for some reason that part like really gets me.
The nostalgia. There's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where Ted is showing the girlfriend he's dating at the time. I can't think of her name, but she's the actress from Scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and just the way that they react to it. People say to me, "What's your favorite Star Wars movie?" And I say, "The Empire Strikes Back." But Star Wars, I mean, it's easily A New Hope too, but that's a cop out. So to me, Star Wars is just sort of the thing, like that. That is. It's the zeitgeist. It's everywhere. It's the Empire exists because of Star Wars, obviously, but Star Wars to me is not my favorite movie because Star Wars is an experience. It's more than a movie to me. I love all the films, but Star Wars is something different than those movies. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is now that I'm such, I've been such a huge fan, and it's so funny hearing from my parents about telling me about what it was like when it originally came out, because my parents were a little younger than I am now when the originals came out. So they were college age when the original movie came out, and my dad remembers, what it was like. He was, he tells how he went and saw it with his friends, and he liked it fine, and he's not like a fan like us, but he was like, yeah, I can, I remember going seeing it and seeing how, a movie like that was able to change cinema for the rest of time, pretty much.
It's staggering. I really, honestly, when I started this segment, the top of the show, I thought maybe we'd spend 3 or 4 minutes, but we could easily spend the entire hour on this.
That seems like it, yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, the nostalgia factor and just kind of what brought us in, and this may be something we revisit semi-regularly, because I think the process of what pulls people in, I think, is interesting, because we obviously stick around much, much longer than any other film, I would say. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to play my conversation with Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures executive producers, Bill Motz and Bob Roth. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Better than one of those coffee chains, it's Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. A big reason for the success of our show is our CWK Patreon contributors, including Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Aaron Harris, David Strutt, Mediocre Jedi, BJ Smith, Nick Deco, Adam Leonard, Mark Suter, Mike Audette, hey, Eric Struthers, Jared Cantor, and Swara Sala. It's a monthly donation that goes towards show expenses, equipment, and travel, and makes a huge difference in the production and vision and scope, really, of our show. There are a number of incentives to help you get more involved. A $10 or more donation gets you an exclusive link to a Google Hangout, which we're going to have towards the end of this week, I believe, if scheduling lines up. More on that on the Patreon Coffee with Kenobi page. If you're interested in more of that, a donation of $10 or more will get you a link to that. We've got contributors who donate $35 or more will get the newest show before anyone else, and so on and so forth. I'd encourage you to go and check it out. Some of the incentives, besides getting a coffee mug or t-shirt, includes being a co-host on the show for 1 week, 2 weeks, or even a month. And there's just a lot of opportunity to contribute to the discussion. So check out the link on our webpage or the show notes for much more information. Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures executive producers Bill Motz and Bob Roth join us. And you have both certainly set the Star Wars world ablaze with Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. How did your involvement with Lego and Lucasfilm begin? I'm sure you've never answered that before.
Well, we've told the story so many times that it's become so encrusted with detail. We'll do the under a half-hour version of it. We heard about this from back in the it was summer of 2014. We heard rumors that they were looking. That Lego and Lucasfilm were looking to start up a new series, something different than what they'd done before with Droid Tales and Yoda Chronicles and Padawan Menace, all that stuff, which, by the way, done by Michael Price, friend of ours, and he just did genius work on that stuff. Anyways, we heard they were looking to do something different, and that had us super intrigued. So we started pestering a friend of ours who's an executive over at Disney, Jermaine Turner, and said, what do you know? And it turned out he was the point executive for Disney on the project. So we just inundated him with, hey, what's going on? Let us know. We want to pitch. Tell us what this show is. We're dying to be a part of it. And he kept, pushing us off, saying, we're not ready to talk to people just yet. We're figuring out all our P's and Q's. Eventually, we found him at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. We ran into him in a really terrible party in a sweaty, overcrowded basement of a restaurant. 200 people crammed into a room fit for maybe 50. And we said, Jermaine, tell us what's going on. We need to know. And he sort of, over the loud thumping music and warm beer and, chitter chatter of all the people around us, sort of shouted in my ear, "We want a Lego Star Wars show, all new characters, encompasses the entire saga. Go." And my head sort of swung from that, and Bill couldn't hear a word of it, So
yeah, as we were walking out of there, I asking Bob to tell me what he said. Tell me what he said.
Yeah, so we decided to go get dinner. We were walking 3 blocks to a restaurant to go grab a bite to eat. And I sort of laid out for Bill what Jermaine had shouted in my ear, and then we sort of walked in silence, going, what do we do with that? And by the time we got to the restaurant, like a lightning bolt, and this rarely happens, It hit me like, I know what the show is. It's a family. They're scavengers. They go through the Star Wars universe and pick up, pieces pick up debris from all the battles we've seen, and they fashion it into new ships that they can then sell to people to make a living in the Star Wars universe. And
of course, this was before Episode 7, or we knew anything about Episode 7. So the idea that Rey is a scavenger, a salvager, was not something we were aware of. Had we known that, we might not have gone that direction, but it actually ended up being complementary.
Yeah, Carrie Beck thought that worked perfecly,
which was fun. We thought also worked really well with the Lego universe in terms of one of the cool things about Lego is that you can break apart your kit and build something new, and you've got a whole new toy. Ship. Yeah. So we felt like the idea that you could take the wings off a TIE fighter and stick them on the body of an X-Wing, and you've got something pretty cool, which, of course, in the Star Wars universe is called an Ugly, and we thought that whole concept fit in really well with what we wanted to do.
Yeah, so over the course of that dinner in San Diego, we kind of hashed out loose sketches of who our characters were. Roger definitely came out of that dinner. And
he was the first character named.
Yeah, first character with a name.
Because Roger.
Yeah, that was the easiest character to name. And so then we had to wait. That was July, and Lucasfilm and Lego weren't ready to talk to anybody until October. So we were just, antsy at that point, going, we've got this idea. We know it's great. We feel it's great. We don't often say that about our own ideas. We're usually pretty gun shy. But this one, it felt like, we'd been touched by divine inspiration, and this show was manifest destiny. It had to happen. So we just sort of waited until they were ready to talk to us, and then...
And it was very funny, too, because Jermaine had said, don't pitch them anything. Yeah. Like, they're just going to tell you what they want. Just listen.
Just listen. They just want to meet you. It's called a meet and greet. And
sounds like Seinfeld.
Yeah, pretty much, very much.
But in the meeting, it started leaking out of us that we kind of had an idea. We to the point where we just kind of couldn't hold it back, and so I turned desperately to Jermaine, and he's like, "Oh, fine,
just go." So we pitched a very loose concept of it, and we could tell they were receptive. So from there, we went away and refined it into a genuine, real pitch. And by Christmas, we learned that we'd landed the job, and the Freemakers were going to fly. And so that's the story.
I love this story, and there may be a few of our listeners who haven't heard it, so I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And at what phase of this inspiration, and I love how it hit you like that, because then you just know you're onto something wonderful, something fortuitous. When did the designs of the new characters, when did those begin to take shape and become more malleable?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, obviously Roger was, again, the easiest one. But who the Freemakers were themselves, that was an interesting development phase for them visually. Lego took the first crack at it, and they came up with a ton of interesting ideas. And a wide array of, some of them were,
very alien.
Yeah, there was one version of them that they were all Thrawn species. They were blue with red eyes, and we're like, well, that's interesting, but that's not the characters we're writing. So then Carrie Beck was the one who, they had some that felt, Lego hit on some that felt like, yeah, that's close. That might be them. But Carrie Beck was the one who had this pretty brilliant idea of, Lego is great at translating live action characters into these minifig caricatures, right? You can look at a Han Solo minifigure, and with very little detail, that is clear that is Harrison Ford, and that couldn't be anybody but Harrison Ford. So she was like, the problem is we all don't have the human characters that, we don't have the live action versions to work off of, so we don't really know, whether we've hit the target or not, whether we've reduced them in that minifigure caricature properly. So it was her idea to bring in Doug Chang and his group to design them as if they were real live action people. And again, Doug's group went through a bunch of variations. Again, there were versions where the Freemakers were aliens. And eventually we settled upon the Freemaker designs that we showed. You can find them on Twitter. The designs we showed at Celebration this year of the Freemakers as live action people. And then from there, it kicked back over to Lego to say, okay, now imagine this, this beautiful painting that Doug and his team has done. Now imagine, reducing that to minifigure form. And suddenly, the entire process was so much easier once we had something we all agreed, if they were flesh and blood people that, we could walk up and shake their hands, this is what they'd look like. So, one of the many, many, many things we're eternally grateful to Carrie Beck for, because that was just a genius idea. And Doug as well. My gosh, such a talent.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you also get to work a lot with Leland Chi, one of my favorite people. I bet that's got to be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's fun for us. I won't speak for Leland.
He seems to tolerate as well.
Yeah, when we're deep in scripting, we average about one stupid phone call to Leland a day, and it's like, Leland, what do Wookiees eat for breakfast? What does Mon Mothma wear on her feet? Just we call him our stupid question of the day for Leland, and Leland
always gleefully checks out, says, okay, I think it should be this, or it would probably be this, or here's a couple of options,
right?
And, that kind of thing.
So,
and he reaches very deep into the expanded universe and the depth of things. Sometimes we would say, well, we need a shuttle that would be doing something here, and he will just pull a reference that goes deep and wide.
Leland is, he's one of our favorite people. He's such a joy to work with. And, I'll say he was there in all our story breaking meetings, and he even contributed a few ideas that I think are really cool. It was his idea in the Race on Tatooine episode that the Freemakers flee into the sandcrawler that we know from A New Hope. So that was his inspiration. We initially, I think we had said the Freemakers find a cave and they're hiding in there, and he said,
"No, use a sandcrawler. It's there, and you can do that, and we have all this cool stuff inside." And
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy and a good friend, and can't imagine doing the show without him.
Well, it sounds like to be a fly on the wall for the three of you would be fascinating and very entertaining, which is pretty much what the Freemakers is like anyway as a show. So let's look a little bit closer at the major heroes in the show. Xander Freemaker, of course, is the oldest, which carries a lot of responsibility. So how has he evolved as a character from the beginning to where we are at the start of Season 2?
Well, it's interesting. Eugene brought a lot of... we'll say this for all three of our leads, or even four. We'll include Matt in there as well. That they quickly became a family, and we'd always known that Xander was going to be kind of the older brother you look up to. But
what we didn't anticipate was that they would actually do that.
Yeah, and that tenderness would come across so clearly in their performances. One of the things we sort of stumbled across in the first season without ever, it wasn't a conscious decision, is we realized, every time Rowan gets a lesson in the Force, it's coming from Xander, who just has, he's not Force sensitive himself, but he has
a
some
simple, folksy wisdom.
Yeah, he has a simple way of seeing the universe that actually jives very well with the Force. So that's something I don't think we anticipated with Xander, that he would be the Yoda that Rowan lacks. But nevertheless, there he is, telling him maybe you don't need eyes to use the Force, or maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you ought to let your mind loose.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because Nare is kind of giving Rowan this sort of hidden dark side version of trying to manipulate objects and work that kind of thing, and then Xander, just his sort of big brother way, is giving Rowan truth about how the Force works, and it actually pays off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nice parallels, just kind of for the mythology of Star Wars with the dynamic of them. And speaking of dynamics, we've got Courtney Freemaker, who's continuing the tradition of dynamic female characters. What are some of her biggest challenges for the both of you at this point in her character arc?
Well, I think in season 1 there was a little bit of a balance between her greed or frugalness or something. That's an edge that could make her unlikable. Mm-hmm. So we had to balance it out that the reason she is this way is to protect her family.
Right.
That it comes from a really good place, even if sometimes it makes her look very cheap. Like not giving out the business cards because they're expensive.
Well, and the trick of it is Cordy is cheap, and will definitely play comedy off that aspect of her character. But where it becomes, the episode Crossing Paths, our 6th episode, I think, where she meets Leia is a big moment for Cordy, where she realizes, I've kind of lost sight of the reason I am the way I am. She's sort of, she's become so thrifty and almost cutthroat in her cheapness that she's lost sight of I'm doing this to protect my family. I'm doing this and she's starting to realize, there's a bigger universe out there, and I've got to find a way to contribute, and it's not all just selfishness. So yeah, that's one of the big challenges for Cordy coming up in 2nd season. We'll see her start to grow as a leader and start to the Rebel Alliance has such great female role models. In the obvious one, of course, is Leia, but there's Mon Mothma and yes, Hera as well. So Cordy is sort of they're all drawing her under their wings and sort of helping her shape and build her skills as a leader.
Yeah, they see her potential and they definitely shape it, and bring her into the inner circle.
And it's definitely really adding to the dynamic. And I believe you had said it earlier time. I think I read it somewhere. The importance of family, and I think that comes through really well with the show, the chemistry of the show. And we've got Rowan, who's really interesting because he's Force sensitive, which brings, of course, certain fan expectations. What are some of the biggest challenges to bringing him to life and still maintaining the freshness that he exhibits on the show?
Good question. I'll say, I think one of the smartest things we did on the show was casting Nicholas Cantu. That kid is such a natural, intuitive actor that we all throughout the first season we were worried, like, are we leaning too much on his skills, or are we going to push him to the point where he breaks and he can't deliver the performance we need? And man, were all those fears completely unfounded, because that kid, he just knocks him out of the park.
And his range is rather remarkable, especially for someone of his age. Mm-hmm. And so we knew that we could get the energy and the sort of hyper excitement out of him, and the enthusiasm out of him. But it's tough when you're actually getting into some really deep emotional depth, or sadness even. Like, we were like, could he pull that off? And so we would sort of push the limits of that, and every time he surprised us and took it deeper.
And I'll say the same was true with Vanessa Lenges and obviously Eugene as well. We've got a cast of really strong actors. You mentioned family, and 10 minutes in the booth together in the very first record, they were a family already, and it was a joy to behold, because we cast each of them separately. And, you just cross your fingers that there's going to be chemistry when they get there. And it was so apparent from day one, that it was there. Yeah,
they actually took on the roles in a way that so definitely Eugene was a big brother. Mm-hmm. Even when we were at the Emmy Awards, Eugene kept adjusting Nicholas's tie. Like, here, it's a little crooked. Let me fix that for you. That kind of thing. And they hang out together. Matt flies down from Skywalker Sound to the recordings here in Burbank just so he can be part of the ensemble, because he knows it's fun and he gets to see his friends, but he knows it also yields a better performance.
Right.
And that there's an actual energy there of companionship and mentoring and friendship and family that I think comes through.
We kind of skirted the question, though, about Rowan in specific. His challenge coming forward in the second season is he's got to find his place in the rebellion. He's got to find a way he can participate and be a part of the rebellion and make a meaningful contribution. And that is that's his big challenge coming up.
Well, it's beautiful the way that he comes to life, because you have challenges as creators, because you've got someone who is a burgeoning Jedi with Jedi potential. But you've also got your Anakin Skywalkers and your Ezra Bridgers and your Kanan Jarruses, so you have to do something to make him stand out and have a unique voice. And I really appreciate the incredible work that you've both done on this.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we were definitely keeping Anakin and Ezra in mind, and we wanted to make Rowan's journey similar but different, And that's very much where the family concept, we realized that was going to play. That, Anakin, he has no father. His mother is, left behind on Tatooine and eventually, killed by Tusken Raiders. Ezra, off on his own, orphan, street rat. And that's where we realized, seeing the journey of a burgeoning Jedi through the eyes of a family, or through the lens of a family, I guess I would say, that would offer a unique twist on the Jedi coming to be. So,
plus Rowan specifically is modeled or inspired quite a bit by Bob's son, Danny, who focus is a struggle.
Yeah,
and
to say the least. And we thought that
characteristic is a challenge for a Jedi, somebody who has to sort of be so focused and trained and disciplined. Right. If that's not your nature, that's a pretty big obstacle to have. And then
face. It also not only did it offer drama, but it also offered comedy of Nare, the evil Sith, posing as a Jedi, trying to train the kid who is not going to sit still, is constantly fidgeting, isn't going to listen.
Easily distracted. It all came out of, moments trying to get my son to do his homework. I was Nare in those situations going, you must focus. Even down to the whole face markings blazing red sometimes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, being a father of three boys ranging from the ages of 3 to 17, I completely can empathize with you both. So, we're laughing now, and that's what I expected, because we're talking about Lego and Star Wars, and they both have, of course, strong elements of humor. And I think Roger's a catalyst for that, clearly, just the impetus of how it was created. It's also something of a new prototype for Star Wars. Mm-hmm. He brings the battle droid to life with a personality in a very different, non-Mitchell Bones sort of way.
Right. Roger, like we said, he was one of the first things that came out of the, that dinner we had in San Diego. We knew that we wanted to have a droid character, and we quickly stumbled into the battle droid thing, and that sort of came out of Matt's performance on the Clone Wars, where you get hints of it even in the films. That, you know,
especially in the Clone Wars,
you start to see those characters that, you know, they're at a point you just start feeling bad for the battle droids. Like, you know, when you see like a dozen of them marching at Mace Windu, you know, like this is not ending well. This is going to end very poorly for all you guys. And so, you know, the last of the battle droids, the guy who had survived the Clone Wars and everything else, that just struck us as that's a funny character to play. And we knew Matt could make it.
Yeah. And we did, great. And it fit in too because we, as salvagers and scavengers, that they would find, you know, this old war relic and find like, hey, I can tweak this thing and turn it. So the idea of this battle robot being now essentially the sort of nanny butler, we thought was kind of a funny idea. And I think it has played really, really well. And there's that whole story like Roger's one arm is slightly different color. It's sort of a whitish color. And that was kind of funny when we realized, of course, in Force Awakens that C-3PO was also getting a different colored arm.
Right.
So our time is running short. Really appreciate you both being a guest on Coffee with Kenobi. What can you share with us that we can look forward to for Season 2?
Oh, Season 2. Bigger, better, more exciting, funnier. Lots coming at you. We don't want to give away too many spoilers. We've got... you know, of course, we've got Lego ships are such an important part of the show, and we've got 2 new ships that feature very prominently this season. One is the Arrowhead, which is I don't want to give away too much, but is sort of Rowan's quest to find and build a ship that can turn the tide of the war. And then the other one is the Tracker 1, which goes hand in hand with our new villain of the season. Tracker 1 is the ship of MOC, who is a cold, ruthless killer droid put on the case of finding Rowan Freemaker by none other than Emperor Palpatine himself. He's voiced by James Urbaniak, and we are so proud of how MOC has turned out. He is cool and creepy and scary, and yet there are ways to get comedy out of him because he's so cool that it's almost a joke.
So if Season 1, if the Freemakers were kind of on the outskirts of the larger galactic conflict, Season 2, they're in the heart of it.
Yes, they're going to be. They're very much a part of the rebellion, and they're drawn into. Bill's right into the heart of that conflict, and we've got some space battles, Rebels versus Empire, that are I would say with a fair amount of pride are really, really spectacular space battles. I can't wait for people to see them. So.
Oh, fantastic!
Lots of cool stuff coming up.
It just looks like it's going to be a stellar season. I mean, that's kind of what we would expect, and faster, more intense, right?
Yeah. Bigger, better, bolder. It's I can't wait till it's out there. Coming this summer to a galaxy near you.
Exactly. We will definitely be ready and tuning in to savor every little moment that you're going to share with us of Season 2. Of Lego Star Wars, the Freemaker Adventure. So, gentlemen, where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
Twitter is the best place to get a hold of me. I'm at Automatic Gravy, and Bill is
at Inevitably Bill.
And we love to field questions on Twitter. Ring us up or tweet at us, whatever.
Whatever you kids do.
Whatever the kids are doing these
chats
days.
And things. Yeah.
With your Google machines.
Yeah. Break out your Google machine and tweet something at us. We love to interact with fans.
Wonderful. Well, hey, thank you, gentlemen. This was an absolute joy.
Same here. Thank you. Have a great day, and may the Force be with you.
Well, thank you. You as well. Bill Motz and Bob Roth, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, Tom Gross will join us for news. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Oh, pass the cream, would you?
Today is a great day to download the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. Recent additions to the app include the amazing 40th anniversary set. It will last for about 5 or 6 days. And if you got all 40 of them, you got a reward card with Han Solo on it, so I'm looking forward to getting that. Really amazing. Another thing I love so much about the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app is that it features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's also very easy to start out with. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every single pack. After you download each pack, every day you're going to go back and get free credits to spend on even more packs from the Cantina. And if you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place where you can trade with your friends as you complete your Star Wars collection, and it's all free. And I also want to plug and thank Aaron Harris for helping me get the rest of that 40th anniversary set. Thank you, friend. That's what this whole community is all about, helping each other out. And what better way to do it than through the free Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app. And if you're really into collecting, you can find exclusive cards, special inserts, and even autograph opportunities. Don't worry about missing cards that you want or sets that you're interested in, because you can sign up for notifications right on the app. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection right now. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is available now, and remember, these are the cards you're looking for. Tom Gross joins us with news, and Tom, it's summer for our school where we are at now. Craig is also an educator, but he doesn't get done until, what'd you say, towards the middle of June?
Yeah, June 16th is my last day.
But, wow. But tell Tom how many snow days you've had.
10 or 11. I can't exactly remember. We had a lot of snow days this year.
Yeah, wow. See, sometimes I think snow days are better than those first days of summer because they're unexpected and they're so like just rejuvenating. You're like, yes, no school today.
You know what? The first couple, that's how I felt. But when it was like once a week for a while, it wreaked havoc with a lot of my plans. But
that is true. And boy, getting out June 16th, that would be rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. We're watching Star Wars right now, so it's all good.
Excellent. A lot of neat things going on. So let's get started with Memorial Day weekend. With Memorial Day weekend past, the Major League Baseball season is in full swing. Now I know, what does baseball have to do with Coffee with Kenobi or Star Wars? Well, Major League Baseball and Star Wars have teamed up for several dates throughout the baseball season for Star Wars Night at the ballpark. A number of teams have Star Wars Night dates throughout the season, with upcoming games in June with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Houston Astros, Philadelphia Phillies, and the Minnesota Twins. StarWars.com has a full list of dates through the season, and most teams include giveaways to the first X number of fans. And I'm looking at a picture here of former Cy Young Award winner R.A. Dickey and his bobblehead. Dickey is dressed in a First Order Stormtrooper outfit that has a removable mask, and he's holding a baseball like he's ready to launch one of his famous knuckleballs. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays have a great bobblehead of Kevin Kiermaier as an X-Wing pilot riding in an X-Wing. So Craig, Mike, or Dan, have any of you attended or collected any of these cool Star Wars Night giveaways?
I'd like to. I know my team, the San Francisco Giants, has one of those nights this year too. Unfortunately, I'm pretty far away from them, but I would love to get my hands on any one of these. They all sound really cool.
Are there Red Sox? The Red Sox doing it, Mike?
They actually already had their Star Wars game this season. They actually had theirs back on May the 4th.
That seems kind of convenient, I think.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw this break on StarWars.com, the first thing I did was tweet to the Cubs and say, dudes, what's the deal? They haven't done one for 2 years. I actually have been to a Star Wars night at Major League Baseball, and it was at the Atlanta Braves ballpark of all things. We were driving home from Florida on our honeymoon, and we were getting close to Atlanta, and I said, hey, we're really close to the Atlanta Braves game. Let's see if they're in town. I've never been to that park, because I think I've been to maybe 13 or 14 ballparks in my life so far. And so she gets on her phone and pulls it up, and she looked at me with this kind of bemused probably is a better expression look, and she said, well, they're playing tonight, and it's Star Wars night. And I said, well, she goes, well, it's obviously meant to be, we need to go. It was so cool because the 501st was walking around. I didn't really see any merchandise at that time, but there was Star Wars music in between innings, and they would show images of the players when they're getting up to bat or they're going to start pitching, and they had little fun interview segments in between innings too. So it's a really fun, unique experience. Again, I wish my team had done it. I do know that there's some very select merchandise besides the giveaway bobbleheads. Major League Baseball made a couple of hats. I have a Cubs hat that has the C on it with the lightsaber from the poster of Return of the Jedi on it too, so that's kind of cool. But I love that they're trying to do this. It reminds me very much of the whole marathon thing because they're trying to combine different worlds to embrace Star Wars, and I think it's worked out really well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I've never been to a major league one, but I know a lot of minor league ballparks do it as well. Our local minor league ballpark had a Star Wars night a couple years ago, and I think they do every year, but I got a bobblehead of the mascot, Homer. He's a dog, and he's wearing Jedi robes, and he's got a green lightsaber, which is pretty cool. And I think, Craig, is it you that's over in San Francisco area?
Well, I'm from Northern California. I'm up in Washington right now, but yeah.
Because I was going to say they have multiple dates this year of Star Wars nights. They've got August 31st, and then they close out the season on September 30th, according to StarWars.com. And I saw, I went to the Giants thinking, wow, they've got a lot of dates. They've got this promotion where you get a T-shirt that has R2-D2's body, and then they give you, as your promo, a beanie that has R2-D2's head.
Awesome.
That's wild.
And it looked pretty cool.
I think, let's see, let me think. I think Lucasfilm is probably about 10 or 12 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes from the ballpark, so that makes sense.
Yeah. That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a Star Wars San Francisco Giants pennant that I'm looking at right now that has Darth Vader on it. So, yeah,
there's tweet that out.
The crossover is very natural. Yeah.
That'd be very cool. Well, with a follow-up from one of our stories from a few weeks ago, the Star Wars Force for Change campaign that launched at Celebration Orlando wrapped up with success. According to StarWars.com, over 66,000 people from 160 countries entered to win 3 once-in-a-lifetime Star Wars experiences. Star Wars fans in the Star Wars community raised over $3.4 million to support UNICEF and the Starlight Children's Foundation. I was sad to see, though, that no one on this show today were the recipients of any of the grand prize awards.
I was sad to see that as well. Because I didn't.
I would have been really surprised. Yeah, I didn't enter, so that would have been extra.
He seemed overjoyed, and good for him. I mean, it's an incredible thing. They get to go to on the set, of the Han Solo film. They get to go to the premiere of The Last Jedi. Get to go to Rancho. I mean, there's in Lucasfilm too, right?
Yes, that's correct.
It's a heck of a combination. So it'd be great to have him on to see what all the experiences were like for him. But man, of course I'd love to win. I'd love to have someone who I know win. But that's just amazing. I would imagine they're going to do this for episode 9 too.
Yeah, well, UNICEF will use the support to send ready-to-use therapy food packets to children across Eastern Africa facing famine. The Starlight Children's Foundation will provide 15,000 Star Wars-themed, hospital-approved gowns for children, as well as 340 virtual reality kits for children who are hospitalized with life-threatening conditions to help them feel less confused, scared, or lonely while they spend time away from home in the hospitals.
I do want to say, I'm glad you brought that part up because, yes, I'd love to win. We'd all love to win these amazing experiences, but the fact that you're helping kids, the Starlight Foundation is really awesome at doing that particularly. It just means so much, and it's just so much more important than lightsabers and the Force and what binds the galaxy together. What really binds the galaxy together is compassion and caring for people. Any kind of thing that you can do to help out is amazing. And honestly, whether it's Star Wars or not, you'd like to think that people would reach out and do that because it's just so imperative. I mean, we all have kids or are fans of kids or are big kids ourselves, so we know how much this means.
Well, you know that anytime there's game news out there for Star Wars, that I'm all over it. So today, the Star Wars show broke the story, and Stern Pinball Facebook and Twitter pages confirm that there will be 3 new 40th anniversary original trilogy themed pinball machines: the Pro, the Premium, and the Limited Edition, designed by Steve Ritchie. More details are to come, but the games will include film voice and video footage on an LCD screen above the playfield. The Millennium Falcon and a TIE Fighter model will be in the play area. And I love this one. The Boba Fett Fan Club Facebook page even pointed out that Boba Fett appears in the billboard area of the game above the LCD screen and speakers. These 3 games look pretty epic. And, who doesn't need a great pinball machine added to their podcast studio, right, Dan?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think it would. We actually talked about getting an original Pac-Man cabinet game for the basement. I thought that would be cool. Man, would that be awesome to have a pinball machine? What about you guys? Would you actually consider doing that? Getting one of those?
I think I'd have to get my own place first.
I need a room for that, an extra room for that for sure. I wouldn't mind playing it though.
Well, I think it should be in your classroom.
You know what? Maybe I can do that. I'll just write up a little proposal and see if I can get a grant for that, maybe. Yeah.
Man, favorite teacher ever right there.
Right.
Watch Star Wars at the end of the year, and then everyone gets to play a game of pinball. Well, I told my daughter, I said that if I were ever to get something like that, we share an office in the basement, and she's actually in here right now, and she crafts in one half of the office, and then I do my work on the other half. I told her that if I were to end up with a pinball machine like this, she's out. Well, gentlemen, that is the news for this weekend. We'll catch you next week.
Hey, thank you so much, Tom. That's
good.
That's good stuff. And thanks again for volunteering to buy a pinball machine for all of us, too.
Of course.
So,
have everyone over. Every guest comes on Coffee with Kenobi. Come right over.
So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about gatekeeping versus contextualization for new fans. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Better than one of those coffee chains, it's Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. We're in the coffee chat segment of the show, and for this one, I was debating what I wanted to talk about because you want to keep it fresh and you want to keep things engaging and intellectual, especially for this segment. And that's just an important part of why I think this show is so much fun, at least for me to do, and I hope why people listen to it. But Craig had this really cool thing, and I'm not sure if you got this inspired from your classroom or from Twitter, but it's gatekeeping versus contextualization for new fans. Tell me about this topic for people who may not be as familiar with it.
So, some of the idea I got from hearing Brian Young talk about gatekeeping quite a bit and just trying to stay away from that and make sure that Star Wars is something that's inviting for everybody. And then really I was kind of inspired by my classroom experience because I always come in making sure I state it from my experience. I know that I need to come in and state right ahead. If you've seen the movies, please don't spoil them for people. Because kids want to show each other that they know what's going to happen. They want to show somebody that they know the secrets because they want to look smart, right? They want to show that they know more than other kids. And I've just tried to instill in them that it's so much more fun to watch people experience it for themselves, to just kind of set it up for them, but to let them experience it. Don't force them to think things a certain way. Just kind of let them come to it however they're going to come to it.
And so this is more based on sort of enjoying and embracing the films themselves? Or see, when you first told me about this topic, I thought you were talking about just fandom and online Star Wars fandom.
Yeah, it's some of that too. I think because it's related to the prequels is a thing too that I really think the prequels and Rogue One were kind of the two central things that I thought about with this. Rogue One especially, it's such an interesting thing where this movie comes out after Episode 7, but it's not a sequel to the last movie that came out.
Right.
And for those of us that are firmly entrenched in the fandom, we know when it's set, we know what the story is going to be about, but I know there was a lot of confusion about like who are these people, what's going on, when exactly is this set, and I know from my own personal experience of just watching this with other people and seeing them be kind of confused about what the movie's supposed to be, at least initially. And I kind of felt after the fact that if I had done just a little bit more contextualizing, not contextualizing it for them so they kind of knew what was going to happen, but to find that balance. And I think that I erred too much to the side of I just don't want to spoil something for them or frame it in such a way that's going to make them think of it in a certain way. I think there's a delicate balance between those two. That let me kind of bring you into what's going on, but let me not force my opinion on you. Right. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I had some similar experiences with Rogue One with some of my coworkers. Usually on my desk at work, I have a couple like Star Wars Funko Pops and a couple Wonder Woman ones, so people sort of know when they walk by my desk, they can tell what sort of things I'm into, and sometimes they'll come up and be like, "Oh, new Star Wars movie's coming out. You excited?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going on vacation to go see it, so I'd say I'm pretty excited." But then I'd be like, "So are you gonna go? You gonna go see it? Are you a big fan too, or whatever?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I went and saw the last one, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where it's going from there." And I'm like, coming from somebody who's in the fandom like we are, I'm like, okay, well, this one isn't a direct sequel, but it is still technically a sequel. And then they're like, okay. So like what you were saying, Craig, where you're trying to find the balance to put it into terms where they can understand what is going to be happening. It's sort of difficult to find the correct wordage to use so they're not able to, so you're not confusing them while you're still keeping them interested in actually what's going to happen, so they still want to go see it.
It's precarious, honestly, because I find that the most loaded question someone can ask me about Star Wars would be not even a question, but so much a statement, where someone who's very much a casual fan finds out that I like Star Wars, and which inevitably happens in my school, or they just see something on my classroom wall and they say, "Oh, you like Star Wars? I do too." And I feel like this thing bubbling inside of me where I want to like explode and a lightsaber's going to come out of my nose or something like that. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, "Wow, yes, I like Star Wars." And I feel like more often than not, people are like, "Whoa, that was a little much," because I'm sure that it's got to be overwhelming. Right. So you do have to frame it and contextualize it. So I find what's easier for me is for me to say, "Yeah, I love Star Wars. What's your favorite movie?" And I just let them talk. And then, you just sort of let your personal fandom and your personal Star Wars experiences kind of seep out. And it is tricky because, to me, this is like the way to start a new friendship and start a new conversation and help perpetuate someone's fandom. But if you're not careful, you could snuff it out and overwhelm them. And I think that's definitely a slippery slope.
It's definitely easy for us because we're so invested and we're so much into it that it's easy for us to want to just talk about it. But like you said, where you kind of turn it back to them, where you say, "Yeah, I love Star Wars. What's your favorite movie, or which is the one you watched the most recent?" And then if you're able to use that as a jumping off point, you are able to give them your perspectives and experiences through their lens.
Right. Mike, how soon does it take you before you say, well, I blog for Coffee with Kenobi and I'm a huge member of Far, Far Away Radio? Like, how do you break the ice with that, or do you?
I actually have, a lot of my coworkers know I, write for sites and do podcasting and everything. Usually when I tell them that I'm a huge, I tell them that I'm a Star Wars fan, they're like, oh, you like the movies and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I take it a little further. I write for websites and things like that. And they're like, oh, like most of the time they're like, wow, that's awesome. Like, you have this passion that you're able to, take with you and, show it off in ways that other people, show off their passion for other things, whether it's sports or, not that I'm not a sports fan, but, how other people show off their passion, for music and sports. I'm able to show them, how much that, Star Wars means to me, that I take it those steps further where, I share my Star Wars experiences publicly.
Craig, what about you? How readily do you share? I mean, and I'm assuming in the classroom you probably have more than likely the same or similar experiences that I do, as far as they know, oh, this is the teacher that uses Star Wars. But what about outside of your circle of educators and you just with just friends and family?
Yeah, I try and just kind of keep a low profile on that. Like if I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, I'll just kind of like just let it sit out there, like just see if someone's going to approach me first, and then I'll. So what do you think? What are your opinions? And before I unload on them, so to speak. My favorite ones are when someone says, "Hey, you ever seen Rebels?" And I go, "Yeah." Fun thing about that, I write a weekly blog. You should check it out. And so, it's easy for me to do the shameless self-promotion on that because it's not my site too. So I can be like, "Oh yeah, my friend has a site. You should check it out and come read my blog." And it's a little easier to kind of strike the balance on that. But most of my interactions though are truly with the kids, and like it's in their face. They walk in the door. There's posters and toys, and I've got a nice big QR code on my door as soon as they walk in the. As soon as they walk in the classroom, it says, "Here's how you get to Mr. Dickinson's blog." That it's nice. It's right there.
And then, of course, your students then notice your Coffee with Kenobi tattoo, and then, well, what's that?
All that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually the real reason Corey isn't a regular co-host anymore, because he spent so much time getting Coffee with Kenobi tattoos.
That's time consuming.
Yeah, it is. But they look great. I mean, he designed them, so I think with Gatekeeping, I definitely think that's something to, because I really want to say, hey, I've got a podcast. I write for a few Star Wars websites you may have heard of. And, there's just so many exciting things that you want to share. But it's wonderful. If you can get people to be more a part of the community, then you're onto something really special, I think.
One thing I also thought about, with it's the Jar Jar thing, I think, more than anything. Because in anything prequel related where someone will voice an opinion, well, I don't like this. And I'm like, well, let me unload on you exactly why this is important, because, it's a crucial thing of what I'm doing in class today. Mainly it's with the kids. And I've gotten better at just saying, just wait, I'm going to explain this to you. And I had a kid actually the other day. He's like, all I know is that I hate Jar Jar Binks. He's annoying. And I said, excellent. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to annoy you. And I'm going to explain to you why that's important later on.
Do you ever find, too, that sometimes when people bring up the prequel thing, sometimes I find myself thinking that this is something that they have heard so much that they've sort of assimilated that opinion into their consciousness. And then once you kind of have a conversation with them or give them a different lens to filter everything through, then you kind of break down some barriers and open up a little more dialogue.
And what's funny is that conversation tends to happen more with adults, the prequel ones. I've got some colleagues and that I've talked to about it. And so, well, let's talk about why you think this. And that's an interesting conversation to have for sure. And, I can bring in personal experience of how I've, incorporated those things. And that's what I'm, when I got to contextualize, like, because I show the prequels in the middle of the original trilogy and show it as flashback. and showed for the parallels. And for me, that just seems like such a natural fit as part of the overall story. That, like, how can you do it without it? You know?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It gives you a different frame of reference.
That very much that. But the other thing I think of too is, you know, most of the students in my classes that haven't seen the films are the girls, and it, you know, this what you just said about, you know, they've heard certain things. That's just their impression. That's mainly what I get from the girls. They've heard that Star Wars is a boys' movie. It's not for them. There's nothing for them there. And I just wait. Let's watch this. And, you know, even just the other day watching, and like, watch Princess Leia rip the gun out of Luke's hand and take charge. Like, look how awesome this person is. And we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more. And you're going to find something that appeals to you.
Isn't that fascinating too? I find that, like this year, I had a student, and she loved Star Wars because her dad had taken her to all the movies, and she was going to go to see Rogue One when it came out, and I just thought that was so cool too. I really find it mostly kind of centers around if the students' parents are Star Wars fans. That seems to be where it all comes from. We're going to take a break and return with your emails, tweets, and Facebook posts. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Better than one of those coffee chains. It's Coffee with Kenobi.
Before we get to email, I want to thank our CWK sponsor, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting App from Topps. Please support them the way they support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. If you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. And with the Rebels, this being the final season of Rebels, you've got at least, 15 more blogs to look forward to from Rebels Reconnaissance, correct?
Absolutely.
From Swara Sala via Twitter, listening to @Mr. Zaire and @Gorilla Scribes' heartwarming and deeply resonant thoughts on Star Wars 40th on Coffee with Kenobi. Bless you, gentlemen. And that was, of course, the show with Ryder and Matt, and we had a tremendous time with them, as have we with the two of you today. Just the conversations that come from just love of Star Wars, and it's also cool. I really liked Matt's detail on him remembering seeing the film for the first time, and the sights and sounds he described, and the car, and obviously he's an amazing writer anyway, but anytime you hear someone speak poetically about something they love, especially when it's Star Wars, that is really engaging to me.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Craig.
I was going to say, his whole story was fascinating about, you know, being in Germany when it came out, and reading the comics and knowing it ahead of time, but not having quite experienced it. I just thought now that's another entry point, like we talked about earlier. Just that everyone has these individual stories about how they come to it with different levels of familiarity, and you know they're all so different. And I just find that endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, I think Matt's story up with ours in the beginning of the show would have liked to join in that conversation for sure.
Absolutely, I agree. From John, which is @KOZEMP Kozemp via Twitter. He is responding to something that he'd reached out to Lattes with Leia on, and apparently for some people's RSS feeds, the show was not showing up on Twitter, and John didn't have one since May the 2nd, so he missed, basically the whole month of the new format, and he said, did I break something? Which of course he didn't. And we actually got a fix for him, which I was happy to do. Happy that it worked out. But one of the things we did for some of the RSS feeds is on our webpage at the very top, or of course icons, all of our social media. But the last one is the RSS feed. So if you click on that and put that in your podcast feed, then you will get all the shows, and as well as different stuff on the website too. Huge thanks, by the way, to Craig Dickinson and Mike Audette for joining me today. Let everyone know where they can find you both, and please feel free to plug any projects either of you have in the works.
Well, I don't have much of a social media presence these days. Been very busy, but you can always email me at cdickinson@coffeewithkenobi.com. And I'm Rogue3 on Star Wars in the Classroom. So if you go to that site, it's pretty easy to find my Hero's Journey unit. You can kind of see a little bit of the stuff that I've been talking about a little bit. Take a look at my plans. And if you're an educator, by all means, beg, borrow, and steal from that page.
Mike, you've got some really exciting stuff going on, too. And by the way, definitely beg, borrow, and steal. And Craig is about as good as it gets with Star Wars and just student engagement. So, but Mike, tell us about, there's this movie coming out about a pretty exciting hero. Tell us about that.
As of our recording, it'll be this Friday. I am just as big of a Wonder Woman fan as I am as a Star Wars fan.
Wow.
So, yeah, which is surprising that I have the capacity for two of those things.
That's super cool. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah. So that is coming out, which I'm wicked looking forward to. Obviously, I read all the comics and everything too, but one of my cool projects that I have going on is I am the co-host of The Lasso, which is a Wonder Woman podcast that I am doing a show with my friend Maya. She's also in the Star Wars fandom too. It's going to be coming out pretty soon. We will be having a episode. Our debut episode will be reviewing the movie. And that is going to be coming to our friend Saf's podcast network, which is actually just started. We started promoting this week. So that network is, you can find them on Twitter. It's Not Saf for Work Podcasts, which uses her name as a nice little play on words.
Excellent.
So yeah, you can look forward to The Lasso coming out soon. Probably by the end of next week, we will have a Wonder Woman film review show out and readily available to download and listen to. You can find that on The Lasso Pod on Twitter. And besides that, I'm also writing for Coffee with Kenobi. My latest blog came out last week, where I wrote about doing a spotlight on fan artists and fan fiction, which is something I'm really into. I read a lot of fan fiction. I write some of my own fan fiction, so it's something that doesn't really get a lot of the mainstream attention for being in the fandom, but it's definitely something that has a huge following.
I was going to say, there's such a huge audience for it, and you can really, there's so much talent out there too with the stories and the way that people take this mythology and create something unique with it that's very much them is great. And I love how involved you are too, Mike. It's really great for me to see.
Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot.
Absolutely. Well, it means a lot for the two of you. Thanks so much, guys, for being on. We will be back next week with two new co-hosts and more Star Wars talk. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.